Did you know that ticket prices can actually go down right before the game? That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time tracks ticket prices in real time from thousands of trusted sellers, then shows you all the best deals. So we can get tickets at the last minute for up to 60% off. Download Game Time now.
Happy Monday morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome into the Cam Rogers Show. On this February 12th, 2018, I am Cam Rogers. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Hey, I'm matching the Flacco jersey this morning. I kind of like this. This is cool. Thank you for tuning in to this live program as we take you up until 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Here's what's coming up here today. So, we are going to recap very quickly the Olympics medal count, a couple of storylines that came out of the weekend, and then right after that, I've got 10 bold predictions for the NFL off-season. You do not want to miss this. I will go through some big-time projections, so keep it right here. 20-minute mark, best possible free agents for the AFC and NFC North, respectively. I'm going to go through all 8 teams, and I'm going to give you best-case scenario for every single one in terms of what free agent they may sign. Then at the 35-minute mark, I've got NBA Power Rankings with Harris Rubenstein. He'll be coming back on the program. Unfortunately, couldn't have him on Friday to do Power Rankings, so we're going to do it today, especially after that Cavaliers-Celtics game yesterday. We'll see where the Cavs fall. He'll give us his top 10. And then later in the show, NCAA basketball has released its top 16 teams, and we will review them with one Brian Ralph, basketball insider here at Chat Sports. So it's a smorgasbord of Chat Sports representatives here on the Cam Rogers Show, and we wouldn't want it any other way, especially when Game Time is coming along for the ride. Check them out, chatsports.com/tickets to get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. Chatsports.com/tickets is the website to download. All right, here we go. The Olympics is underway, starting to get into full swing in Pyeongchang. And here is the current medal count. There you see Norway leading the charge with 8 total medals. Netherlands at 2, Canada 3, Germany at 4. There's the United States, a couple of golds to their credit, followed by France, Sweden, the Czech Republic, Japan, and then you see there Olympic athletes from Russia. So the country of Russia is not represented in the Olympics because of that doping scandal that went on, and then they got penalized and all that. So they have independent athletes representing Russia. There you see with 2 total medals. Really tough conditions, by the way, because there were some really windy situations over the weekend, and women's snowboard slopestyle played in extremely windy conditions. Only 5 of the 25 riders actually completed their first runs, with a number of wipeouts and 3 actually bailing on the jumps altogether. And by the way, we saw our first ever triple axel in American Olympics history. So the other 2 times in all of history, including all of the countries, we saw it from Japan in 1992 and in 2010 in Vancouver. So really a great storyline there for American Olympics history. Our first triple axel ever happened over the weekend. So really great stuff there. And there you see the United States at number 5 in the medal count. It's the early going in Pyeongchang. We'll continue to keep you updated with the medal count and all the big time stories coming out of the Olympics on the Cam Rogers Show, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. By the way, leave a comment on Facebook. Download the podcast version as well. And you can get me wherever you go on iTunes. So I am going to go through my 10 bold predictions for the NFL offseason. Let's get into bold prediction number 1. The Denver Broncos will sign Kirk Cousins. Book it, sign, sealed, delivered. John Elway, he's going to be pretty aggressive in pursuing Kirk. And why wouldn't he? Because he knows the answer is not Trevor Siemian. He knows the answer is not Brock Osweiler, and certainly not Paxton Lynch at this point. I'm sure he's seen enough from him. So the Broncos, well, first of all, they're going to have to make some cap cuts here. Perhaps cutting Aqib Talib, which would free up $11 million in space with just a small penalty. Or Chris Harris Jr. The reality is the Broncos probably won't be able to afford Darby, Aqib Talib, and Chris Harris Jr. all collectively. So one of them is probably going to have to go for this deal to actually go down. But Cousins, I think, would blend well with offensive coordinator Bill Musgrave, and he'd have two talented wide receivers in Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas at his disposal. So if Kirk Cousins wants to win a Super Bowl, I think going to Denver is the best option right now. But what do you think? Best possible team for Kirk Cousins out there? We got the Broncos, Bills, Browns, Jets. Maybe there's a team that's not mentioned that you think Kirk Cousins should go to. Throw in your thoughts in the comments section, and I'll, of course, be tracking what you say throughout the program as we ride along here on the Cam Rogers Show. Bold prediction number 1, Kirk Cousins will sign with the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos may just win the AFC West in 2018 if they do the proper steps to make a good environment around Kirk Cousins. Talking about the offensive line, C.J. Anderson, perhaps going to a running back in the draft, right? And, of course, addressing the cap space situation. So there's Denver. Throw in your votes, ladies and gentlemen, about where Kirk Cousins should go as I go into bold prediction number 2. The Cardinals will sign Case Keenum. Now, I've said this many times on my show. Case Keenum is in an awkward spot, or not Case Keenum, the Cardinals are in an awkward spot in the draft order, picking number 15 overall, which means they're going to miss out on Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, perhaps Josh Allen, perhaps Baker Mayfield. What are you going to do, draft Lamar Jackson and just anoint him the franchise quarterback? So for the Cardinals here, they're going to have to be active in free agency, and Steve Wilks, the new head coach, has been quite vocal about saying the Cardinals have to be aggressive in free agency because the reality is Barkley is a free agent, Carson Palmer retired, and Drew Stanton is a free agent. So for Arizona, they have to go a little creative here. They're not like the Jets or the Browns, etc. They don't have that high draft pick to go to that premier quarterback in the draft. So they're going to have to be active in free agency. I think Case Keenum would make sense here. Now, reports have tied Keenum to the Broncos. So this is definitely one of my bolder of the bold predictions. And, of course, the Vikings could franchise tag Keenum as well, but that price tag would be around $21 million to be your backup quarterback, too, because I'm projecting, you'll see later, a different quarterback, formerly of the Vikings, now a free agent, that will be the starter in 2018. Stay tuned for that. But, yeah, I mean, Case Keenum, I think it makes sense for him to go to Arizona. I think he would work well with Mike McCoy. Mike McCoy is a fantastic offensive mind. And so, bold prediction number 2, I think Case Keenum goes to the Arizona Cardinals because I can tell you one thing. If we're following along with my projections here, and there's going to be another quarterback starting for the Minnesota Vikings, Case Keenum is not going to want to be the backup, especially after the season that he had with Pat Sherman as the OC and, of course, going to the NFC Championship game. It was a good year. And Case Keenum wants to be a franchise quarterback. He wants to be a starting quarterback somewhere. I don't think he's going to have that opportunity in Minnesota. I already told you that Denver is getting Kirk Cousins. So here's Arizona perhaps grabbing Case Keenum. That is bold prediction number 2. Bold prediction number 3 for the NFL offseason. The Jets will draft Josh Allen. Tom Downey is freaking out, I'm sure, right now. But I am saying it right here. So it's certainly not as bold as Mel Kiper's number 1 overall projection in his mock draft 1.0. But the Jets, look, they could lose out on the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes. And there shouldn't be any faith in Christian Hackenberg and Bryce Petty. All right, so the Jets need to look to the future here. The Jets will draft Josh Allen at number 6 overall based on the sheer upside and arm talent that he has. I think they're going to invest in it. I think they're going to buy into it. I think offensive coordinator Jeremy Bates would love to work with him. You know, some offensive coordinators like a project to be able to kind of mold a quarterback because of the amount of upside that this guy has. Josh Allen, you watch the tape, certainly a lot of head-scratcher moments out there in his college career, but also some really extraordinary throws. And I think the Jets front office will see that and say, look, let's get this guy, and oh, by the way, let's re-sign Josh McCown for a year, act as that bridge quarterback. McCown can kind of teach Josh Allen the ins and outs because, look, McCown had a good year last year. He did have a couple of injuries, but he played pretty darn well for the Jets, all things considered, when Robbie Anderson is your number 1 wide receiver and you don't have the services of Quincy Enunwa. It was a really good campaign. as we have a weigh-in for the folks at home, which quarterback prospect in 2018 for the draft is most NFL ready? So is it Darnold? Is it Rosen? Perhaps a Mayfield, Lamar Jackson? Are you on the Josh Allen bandwagon? Throw in your comments in the Facebook Live comments section, and of course I'll be watching what you say. I understand it's a leap of faith, but these are bold predictions, and I'm not saying the Jets is actually the best location for Josh Allen. In fact, I don't think it is the best location for Josh Allen, especially when you have Todd Bowles as the head coach. He's not exactly a quarterback whisperer, if you will. But it's a prediction I'm willing to make here on the Cam Rogers Show. The Jets will draft Josh Allen at number 6 overall. Let's get into bold prediction number 4. DeMarco Murray will be cut by the Tennessee Titans. So the Titans would create $6.5 million in savings if they were to cut DeMarco Murray. And here's the best part. No dead money at all, so no penalty for cutting DeMarco. And that would just pave the way for Derrick Henry to become that lead back. And I think the Titans are ready to give him a shot. Matt LaFleur, the new offensive coordinator there for the Tennessee Titans, I think will do a good job with that offense. They got a lot of good talent on the outside with Corey Davis and Eric Decker, etc. And look, DeMarco Murray, he's not getting any younger, and his play has dropped off a little bit. And, of course, you saw a little bit of the future, if you will, from Derrick Henry at the end point of the Tennessee Titans season. So this obviously would make Henry the featured back. And, look, the Titans could look to the draft as well for a running back. Kerryon Johnson, Ronald Jones, maybe TCU's Kyle Hicks as kind of a rotational running back behind Derrick Henry. Talking about 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds. I'm not talking about a 1st or 2nd round kind of running back, not a Saquon Barkley or anything like that, and the Titans probably wouldn't even be able to get him. So for the Titans, it's time to kind of move on from the DeMarco Murray era. Time to usher in Derrick Henry as that 3-down featured back. And again, you can't scoff at the no dead money there. It's pretty good. It's pretty valuable, especially in this crazy salary cap era of the NFL. So it makes sense from a monetary perspective. It makes sense from a personnel perspective. And with a new regime here with Mike Vrabel, and I mentioned LaFleur as the OC, you never really know what can happen and who can get cut. You're hearing about random names coming out of Oakland who could get cut, and John Gruden could totally just wipe house. So Tennessee Titans will cut DeMarco Murray. That is bold prediction number 4. Bold prediction number 5. How about another cut? The Cowboys will release Dez Bryant. So this does not make as much sense from a monetary perspective as it does with DeMarco Murray. So this is certainly quite bold, especially considering it'd be $8 million in dead money if he were to be cut before June 1st. But the reality is Dez Bryant has not lived up to the hype that came with that 5-year, $70 million contract the Cowboys gave him back in July of 2015. That is a fact, folks. It's about return on investment. And the Cowboys have not gotten that return on that big-time investment for their star wide receiver. And, I think back to the comments made by Executive Vice President Stephen Jones back in January saying that Dez Bryant can be a distraction at times. He can kind of, put things in the wrong direction for the Cowboys locker room, and that kind of stuck out to me. And Dez has routinely struggled to get separation out on the outside and really hasn't clicked with Dak Prescott. Let's face it. I mean, Dez Bryant's great years were with Tony Romo. Dez hasn't eclipsed the 900-yard mark with Dak Prescott at quarterback. And again, it doesn't make a ton of sense considering the cap penalty and there's no real number 1 wide receiver after Dez Bryant. But I think this move would be more symbolic than anything else. The Cowboys may just want to move on from the Dez Bryant era, and to do that, they can cut him, save some money, and save around $8 million. Of course, you have that cap hit too, but certainly more of a kind of symbolic type of move rather than a smart financial move. And again, no real answer after Dez Bryant at the wide receiver position, but perhaps they go to the draft and maybe they make a couple splashes in free agency. They're not in the greatest cap space situation right now, but we do want your thoughts too. Should the Cowboys cut Dez Bryant? Give us a heart for absolutely, a like for no. It's a polarizing topic. Cowboys fans are kind of divided on this from what I have surveyed out there. So definitely let me know what you think about Dez. Most Cowboys fans at least from what I have kind of looked at, have said that, you know, it really doesn't make much sense. We might as well just keep him on the team. We don't want to get that dead money hit and that penalty and all that. So just leave him on the team, see what he can do. But yes, we should probably look to the future kind of thing. So bold prediction number 5, Dez Bryant will be cut by the Dallas Cowboys. All right, let's go to bold prediction number 6. I mentioned the Vikings. Teddy Bridgewater will become the starter. He'll become that big guy in Week 1 in 2018. And we're talking about the offseason here, so I should say he's in position or will be in position to become the starter. So with Case Keenum off to Arizona and Sam Bradford's future in the air, which I'll get to later, Teddy will get his shot. And he should. Look, the Vikings have to figure this guy out. All right? They got to give him another full sample size of play in 2018 and see what happens. Right? Because they invested a high draft pick in Teddy Bridgewater. It's time to figure out if he can take this team to the promised land. Right? Case Keenum, let's face it, had his fair share of struggles in the NFC Championship game. Maybe that made the Vikings front office look to themselves in the mirror and say, okay, maybe Case was just a bit of a flash in the pan and he kind of ran out of energy towards the end of the season. Meanwhile, for Teddy Bridgewater, we didn't see much of him in 2017. Of course, he was recovering, and then he popped into that Bengals game real briefly, and you know that was kind of more of a symbolic kind of thing because Teddy was healthy again. It was a really brutal injury that he suffered. But for Bridgewater, I think he will get his shot because I think Keenum goes to Arizona, like I said, and then there's going to be something different for Sam Bradford, which leads me to this. Bold prediction number 7. The Bills will sign Sam Bradford as their quarterback. So the Bills will likely miss out on the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes because of the Denver Broncos, right, as I talked about in my earlier prediction. And with Keenum now going to Arizona, you got Bridgewater staying with the Minnesota Vikings to be the starter there. Bradford has to go somewhere, right? And I don't think he's going to stay in Minnesota. Buffalo makes sense here. I have a couple reasons why. So considering Bradford can be their guy for a few years, right? He's not the long-term answer, but he can be their guy for a few years, perhaps get them some good amount of wins, maybe a couple of playoff appearances. And at the same time, the Bills can kind of groom a rookie quarterback, you know, behind the scenes as Bradford is playing. So there's reason number 1. The Bills don't want to invest in a 10-year or 7-year kind of quarterback. They want to invest in like a 3 or 4-year kind of quarterback because they want to groom that rookie into the franchise. Reason number 2, offensive coordinator Brian Dable has a similar offensive mindset as one Josh McDaniels, whom Bradford worked with, although briefly, in 2011. And that system focuses on specific plays, or not specific plays, but more general concepts. So it's less about the route trees and the scriptedness, more about the general concept. And Sam Bradford has worked in that kind of offense before. And so I think that Bradford going to Buffalo would be a pretty darn good move for the Bills. Now, Bradford has proved to be very accurate when he does play. And that is a big-time keyword, when, because we all know the injury issues with Bradford. But from 2015 to 2016, we're talking about 29 games here with the Eagles and the Vikings. He completed 741 of his 1,084 pass attempts. So that's roughly 68.3% during that time frame. That's pretty darn good. So Bradford, the accurate quarterback that he is, a good running back behind him, a good offensive line too. The Bills have plenty of draft capital in the first 2 rounds to address the quarterback if they want to kind of groom that rookie. And Bradford can kind of be that, let's say, bridge quarterback, but he's better than a bridge quarterback. This is not a Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh McCown kind of situation. Bradford can win you games, and he can take you to the playoffs. So I like where the Bills are getting Sam Bradford. That's bold prediction number 7. Bold prediction number 8. The Seattle Seahawks will cut Richard Sherman, which is contrary to what Sherman has recently said because, well, he recently mentioned that he feels like he's going to stay in Seattle. And the weird thing about the Richard Sherman Seattle Seahawks situation is Richard Sherman is representing himself. He doesn't have an agent in terms of these negotiations. So that kind of makes things complicated because it kind of requires a level of sensitivity that teams typically don't have to exercise when arguing, for example, that a great player isn't quite as great as he used to be. You know, when you're saying it to an agent, it's one thing, but when you're saying it to the actual player himself, that's a totally different deal. And there you see it right there, $11 million in cap savings. The Seahawks aren't in the greatest cap situation. You got Richard Sherman coming off an Achilles injury, and he's turning 30 in March, folks, which is actually pretty amazing to me. I did not realize he was this old. And then it might just be time for Seattle to kind of retool that Legion of Boom. And so it brings me to this. Has Seattle's Super Bowl window passed? Give me a heart for yes, the Seahawks must retool, rethink things, etc. Or give me a like for not quite yet. Super Bowl window, not over, especially as long as they have one Russell Wilson there as their quarterback. So there's Seattle, and the deal with them, again, they may even shop camp. Chancellor, who knows? They could make some big-time moves this offseason, but I think Richard Sherman will get cut, saving a good amount of money, and the Seahawks can essentially let another team run the risk of a player recovering from an Achilles injury. I see a comment, Cowboys should make a trade with the Broncos for Aqib Talib. That coming from Melvin. Well, Melvin, great timing, my man, because here we go. The Broncos are actually going to cut Aqib Talib. Now, Melvin, you are absolutely correct in that the Broncos have been in the headlines about perhaps shopping Talib, who's also 32, by the way. And look, he did play at a very high level in 2017, but he's, again, not getting any younger. But the Broncos, like I mentioned at the top of the show, have to free up the cap space for that Kirk Cousins run. And you got Bradley Roby, Chris Harris Jr., and Talib. They're all going to cost a combined $27 million in 2018. So one of these guys is going to have to go. And as Talib is a potential trade candidate, here's what I say to that. So there have been some swirlings and some statements from general managers out there saying, look, we're not all that interested in trading for a 32-year-old cornerback, especially considering that the Denver Broncos are likely going to cut this guy because they almost have to create that $11 million in savings and to make that run at Kirk Cousins, right? GMs know this. So they're not really going to field many offers or create many offers for Aqib Talib. Why surrender the draft picks when they know that Talib is going to be cut anyway? So there is bold prediction number 9. The Denver Broncos will cut Aqib Talib. And I'll put a little footnote on this. I think this will most certainly happen. The Broncos will cut one of the following, Talib, Harris Jr., or Roby. It's got to be one of them if they want to grab Kirk Cousins. So there you go. NFL offseason bold prediction number 9. Let's get to my final one. On this one, bad news for San Francisco 49ers fans and really anybody out there who wants Allen Robinson. He will get the franchise tag. And yes, it will not be cheap. It's a risk. He's coming off an ACL injury. It's going to be $16 million roughly if they were to franchise tag Allen Robinson. But the Jags need the best possible offense surrounding Blake Bortles. Let's face it. This guy is not going to win you games on his own. We all know that. That is a fact. And Allen Robinson, I think, by and far, is the best wide receiver in that core for the Jaguars. I don't have much faith in Marquise Lee and Allen Hurns to kind of be that number 1 wide receiver. D.D. Westbrook, he's a nice piece as well, but I don't know if he can take over a game. Robinson is such a special talent that I think it would be crazy for the Jaguars to let Allen Robinson walk. I think they franchise tag him, and if they do that, the Jaguars will probably have to make a cut here or there to kind of free up that space, but I think it would be worth it. So NFL offseason, bold prediction number 10, the Jaguars will risk the franchise tag on Allen Robinson coming off that ACL injury there, and teams that are in need of a wide receiver, the Bears, the 49ers, etc., they're going to miss out on one Allen Robinson. All right, let's summarize my 2018 NFL offseason bold predictions. Here we go, folks. The Broncos will sign Kirk Cousins. The Cardinals will sign Keenum. The The Jets will draft Josh Allen. The Titans will cut DeMarco Murray. The Cowboys will cut Des Bryant, 1 through 5 there, 6 through 10. Bridgewater will become the starter for the Minnesota Vikings. The Bills will sign one Sam Bradford. Seahawks will cut Richard Sherman. Broncos will cut Aqib Talib, and Allen Robinson will get the franchise tag. This is the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Hey folks, how we doing? We are sponsored by the Game Time app. Check them out, chatsports.com/tickets for up to 60% off. All of those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. The Game Time app, sponsoring the Cam Rogers Show here on this February 12th, 2018. Let me be the first to wish you all a happy Valentine's Day, by the way. Go out there and say I love you to that special someone. Give them a hug, a kiss, whatever the case may be. All right, let's go into my next segment here. I've got the best possible free agents for the AFC North teams and the NFC North teams. Let's start on the AFC side. The Baltimore Ravens, best potential free agent addition, Jarvis Landry, wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. And the reality for the Baltimore Ravens, they lack playmakers on the wide receiver position. Okay? You saw it last year. Joe Flacco had his fair share of struggles, I understand that. But also, he didn't get much help from the likes of Brashad Perryman and Jeremy Maclin and Danny Woodhead, who was hurt much of the year. Perryman is a bust, I'm ready to say that. Maclin is likely a salary cap casualty. And look, Landry's not going to light up the scoreboard with 90-yard catches, but he's as reliable as they come. And the Ravens will have to make some decisions to free up cap space, watch for Austin Howard at tackle, maybe Ladarius Webb, among others. And Landry's not going to be cheap either, but I don't think he stays in Miami. But he'd immediately help an offense that, let's face it, looked inept in 2017, especially in terms of the aerial attack. And I know Joe Flacco is known for his deep balls back in the history of the Torrey Smith days and all of this stuff, but he also likes his safety valves. Todd Heap a few years ago and Dennis Pitta when he's healthy and all that. Joe Flacco likes the security blankets. Jarvis Landry can be one for him. All right, let's go to the Cincinnati Bengals. Their best potential free agent addition, it has to be a tackle, Jawan James from Miami. So the Bengals made mistake number 1 last year in the offseason by not addressing the offensive line, and the Bengals may have to address it in the draft, especially at tackle, looking at Connor Williams, Orlando Brown, Mike McGlinchey, etc. But we're talking about free agents here. So Jawan James, although placed on IR in 2017, when he did play, was actually very, very good. Only going to be 26 in June, and I mentioned the IR. It was with a groin, so you can recover from that pretty well. And Miami, number 1, would be insane to let him walk. But if he does, the Cincinnati Bengals may look at him. James is one of the better pass protectors out there in the NFL that nobody talks about. So I've got him as the best case scenario for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's a team that you never really see very active in free agency, but just look at the tape from 2017, and the front office hopefully will say, yeah, our tackle struggled big time. Maybe we should go and take a look at Jawan James. All right, let's go to the Cleveland Browns, the best potential free agent addition for them. Kirk Cousins, quarterback formerly, soon to be formerly, of the Washington Redskins. So I put in my bold predictions that Kirk is going to Denver, but we're talking about hypotheticals here. So for the Browns, it would, of course, be Kirk Cousins. They have the money. $110 million in projected cap space, plenty of draft capital to build a good team around Kirk Cousins. They have that number 1 overall pick to play with, that number 4 overall pick to play with, thanks to the Houston Texans. Kirk Cousins would be a dream scenario. I think Denver is the more attractive option for Kirk if he wants to win right now, but if he wants the money and he's willing to hang around and kind of let the Browns grow year in and year out, perhaps he goes to Cleveland. And look, Jimmy Garoppolo set the bar with this $137.5 million contract. Could Cousins get more than that? It's very likely that he could, especially from Cleveland. And you couple that with the fact that Saquon Barkley, Minka Fitzpatrick could come to town as well via the draft, and Kirk kind of sees a good team forming here. So best potential free agent addition for the Browns, Kirk Cousins. Let's wrap up the AFC North with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this one is in air quotes, top potential free agent addition, because, well, he was just on the team, and yeah, he's going to be a free agent and all that, but really, Le'Veon Bell. Let's face it, he's going to stay with the Steelers. He's not going anywhere. They're going to give him the franchise tag most likely, and Bell would make $14.54 million off that tag. I'd be shocked if Bell were to sit out the entire season like he has threatened to do, because that's a lot of money. But sorry, Bell. Let's face it, teams just don't value running backs as much as they value quarterbacks in the NFL. Take your $14.54 million, play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and move on and have a, solid 2018 campaign, because the Steelers' offense is obviously predicated on those killer bees, right? Bell, Roethlisberger, and Brown. So, is Bell the best running back in the NFL? That's my question for you out there. Give me a heart for Le'Veon Bell is the best running back in the NFL, a like for Ezekiel Elliott, a laughing face for LaShawn McCoy, and an angry face for Offensive Player of the Year, Todd Gurley. Throw in your respective reactions here on the Cam Rogers Show, and I will be tracking what you say as I have my laptop right next to me. I see the votes flowing in here. So let's summarize. Top potential free agent additions for the AFC North teams. Jarvis Landry to the Ravens, Jawan James, tackle for the Bengals, Kirk Cousins for the Cleveland Browns, and Le'Veon Bell for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's go into the NFC North. Best potential free agent additions. And we'll start with the Green Bay Packers. E.J. Gaines, corner of the Bills. So from what I've been reading, what I've been researching, it sounds like E.J. Gaines will test the free agent waters. And why not? The guy had a great season in 11 games last year. Gaines recorded 59 tackles, 9 pass deflections, and 1 interception. He allowed just 38 receptions on 60 targets, according to Pro Football Focus. That's sporting an overall rating of 86.6, good for 13th among all cornerbacks. So E.J. Gaines, a really good season, really a surprisingly good season at that. Could be in for an average salary of around $9 million, which could be out of Green Bay's price range. And he does have some durability issues, missing 26 games in the last 3 years, 5 in 2017, which is something definitely the Packers don't need, because they had a fair share of injuries to the secondary last year, and a big reason why they struggled on that back end. But they could really use a good corner in E.J. Gaines. I know they have needs elsewhere. It's not the greatest roster in the NFL, let me tell you. But Gaines would immediately make that secondary so much better. Best potential free agent there for the Green Bay Packers. You could look at the interior of that offensive line, too, as a potential best-case scenario type of need there. Let's go to the Chicago Bears. This should surprise nobody because they need a wide receiver opposite of Cam Meredith. Could it be Allen Robinson? That's the best-case scenario for them. Maybe they go to Calvin Ridley in the NFL draft and get him to be their top guy. But this is, of course, contrary to one of my bold predictions that the Jaguars will franchise tag Allen Robinson. But if they don't and Allen Robinson walks and tests free agency, the best-case scenario for the Bears would be to sign him. And like I mentioned, outside of Cam Meredith at wide receiver, I have my fair share of questions. And Allen Robinson, I have my fair share of questions for him, too. Coming off an ACL injury from week 1, he recorded 2,800 receiving yards roughly and 22 touchdown receptions for the Jaguars in his rookie deal. Robinson, I think, would be a great complement to Chicago's revamped run game with Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard. And I think Robinson would thrive under Matt Nagy, who is a fantastic offensive mind and the new head coach there in Chicago. I think they would work really well together. I'd expect the 49ers and the Jets to make a few calls to Allen Robinson, too. But for the Chicago Bears, their best potential free agent addition, Allen Robinson, wide receiver. Let's take a look at the Minnesota Vikings. Their best potential free agent addition, Andrew Norwell. And he will be highly coveted in free agency, the guard there from Carolina. Great player in pass protection. He's a road grader and really going to get his fair share of offers. Because in the NFL right now, folks, offensive line play is not really all that good. And Andrew Norwell will immediately make an interior of an offensive line look better. The Panthers, they're not in a great salary cap position to negotiate with Norwell, so I do expect him to test free agency. And Norwell's an all-pro. I think it would bring great improvement to the Minnesota's offensive line, which, look, did not play horribly last year, but I think they played beyond expectations, especially on that interior. Nick Easton played all right. Pro Football Focus ranked him 58th of 77 guards, though. And I think Norwell would really put Dalvin Cook's numbers over the top, too. Just think about Dalvin Cook coming back, right? And now he has a fantastic guard in front of him in Norwell to help things out in the run game, etc. I think this would be a really nice play for the Minnesota Vikings. So that is best potential free agent addition for them. For the Detroit Lions here, as we wrap up the NFC North, Justin ELLIS, defensive tackle for the Oakland Raiders. One of the best one-technique tackles in free agency in my eyes. Had a great 2017 season, eats up blocks, stops the run really well. The Lions have to address that run defense. They have a great secondary. They're set back there with Glover Quinn and Darius Slay. And now you have your new head coach in Matt Patricia, a defensive mind in his own right. And he's going to see, oh my God, I need a Vince Wilfork kind of run stuffer, one technique guy in that middle to eat up the blocks and free up those linebackers. Justin ELLIS could be that guy. 6'2", 335, just 27 years old, playing in the prime of his career, recorded 48 tackles and a half sack last season. If the Lions let Haloti Ngata walk, that could pave the way for one Justin ELLIS to be an impact guy there in the Motor City. All right, so let's summarize my top potential free agent additions for the NFC North. E.J. Gaines, cornerback there. Allen Robinson for the Bears. Wide receiver, Andrew Norwell for the Vikings. And Justin ELLIS for the Lions. E.J. Gaines there for the Green Bay Packers at the top of your screen. Those are the top potential free agent additions in the NFC North. A little NFL talk, transitioning now into a little NBA talk with my guy, Harris Rubenstein, here on the Cam Rogers Show. How are we?
I'm doing okay, buddy. How you doing?
Fun weekend for you, my friend?
Oh, great weekend. Was at a wedding for a member of the Jehovah's Witness Church.
Ooh.
It was very interesting. Apparently, their playlist of music stops at 1988. They did not play a single song after that year, so it was very interesting. So, like, no Bruno Mars, no Justin Timberlake. It was basically Journey, and, like, that was it.
So, no Ja Rule, you know, no Yellow Card, Ocean Avenue, nothing like that?
No, just sad. Literally, like, a lot of Journey. They played Footloose at one point.
Ooh, okay.
It was
Kevin Bacon.
Interesting.
All right, buddy, you are our NBA analyst here at Chat Sports, of course. You have your fresh top 10 power rankings for the NBA. Big game yesterday, Celtics and Cavs. We'll talk about that. Let's go to number 10 here. The Washington Wizards. What do we make of this squad?
So John Wall's been out for a couple of games now. The team they've kept their heads above water. They haven't exactly blown people away with how they've been playing. They've looked a little bit outmatched against good teams, but they're surviving, they're living, and they're moving on with the NBA season. For this Wizards team, look, they tried to get Tyreek Evans at the trade deadline. That didn't work out. They tried to get Marco Bellinelli at the trade deadline. That didn't work out. There was rumors they were going to make a play for DeAndre Jordan. That didn't work out. So now you just basically have the same team they did last year going up against the Celtics, the Cavs, and the Raptors, who are all better than they were last year. It's just they're in a weird situation because they can only be so good with John Wall and Bradley Beal, but they're just not even close to as good as any of the top three teams in the East. So they have a lot of work to do. And I got to say, I wonder if they start to maybe look around and moving a couple pieces this offseason. I think that Otto Porter deal is just terrible. It's just terrible. It's going to strap them forever. And don't be surprised. You might hear a John Wall trade rumor this summer.
Really?
Yes. I think it might be. It's not time to move on. You should never move on from John Wall. But if they don't move Otto Porter and try to make a play for DeMarcus Cousins, they got to do something. They got to shake it up. It's getting too stagnant. They're not going to win a championship with this roster.
How far away are the Wizards from being a championship caliber team?
Well, I'll put it this way. Their coach is Scott Brooks, who's, you know, he could only get so far with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and James Harden, and now he doesn't have anywhere close to those kinds of players anymore. Ernie Grunfeld isn't that good either as a GM. They got to do something with this roster. I honestly, if they don't blow it up, they have to hope LeBron leaves and Kyrie Irving never plays basketball again, basically.
Okay, so there are the Wizards at number 10. Let's check in with number 9 here as we head into single digits. The Milwaukee Bucks. This is a surprise.
The Bucks, yeah, the Bucks have been really good since they moved away from Jason Kidd. Who would have thought that Jason Kidd was actually a really bad head coach? I did.
You did?
I did. Jason Kidd was horrible. He had no idea how to be an NBA head coach. So since he's been gone, Eric Bledsoe's been fantastic at the point guard position. John Henson at center has been way better, and you know Giannis is just a freak.
It's
incredible. Like I know people would call him the Greek freak, and it's like it's crazy. Just if you're an average NBA basketball fan, just watch one Bucks game. Just one game. And you'll just be watching with your mouth agape, just, oh my God, Giannis is incredible. Like, it's unlike anything we've seen in the NBA in decades. It's crazy the stuff this guy can do. He's 22 years old, and he looks like Aqib mixed with LeBron, mixed with Shaq. Like, I don't even know where they found this kid.
I'm wondering if the Bucks will be like a sneaky, sexy, kind of dark horse pick.
Oh, you know what? I am afraid. If you're the Raptors or the Celtics, you're afraid of the Bucks because Giannis is going to win 2 playoff games by himself. He's going to win a game at home, and he might just walk into your arena and just beat you with 50 points. So you have no idea what this Bucks team is going to throw at you on a night-to-night basis. They're a better defensive team now than they used to. This is a scary team. This is a sleeper pick. I like the Bucks.
Okay, so there they are at number 9. Let's take a look at number 8 in Harris's NBA Power Rankings, OKC.
You know what? Last time I was on here, I talked about how Andre Roberson was going to be the death of this team, or losing Andre Roberson, and then they come out and completely annihilate the Golden State Warriors at home for the 2nd time this year, and Melo played 6 minutes. So it was basically Russell Westbrook and Paul George versus the Golden State Warriors, and they blew them off the court. Like, I'm not talking like, oh, it was a little win, oh, it was a nice win. No, they blew them out. Like, it was a crazy game. Totally annihilated them. I did not see that coming. Go for the Thunder. I hope that they're going to be good. But the problem is that they've won kryptonite, and it's the Houston Rockets. So if they can't beat the Rockets, they're not going to get to the Warriors, and they're not going to go anywhere. But so far, so good for the Thunder.
So they are at number 8 in Harris's Power Rankings.
People are going to get mad at me for the next one.
Yeah, we got the Cleveland Cavs here. They crushed the Celtics yesterday.
They did crush them. But mind you, it definitely looked like a team that just got half of their roster completely fresh off of the waiver wire, and another team that looked like their team needs the All-Star break. And that's exactly what it was. Look, they got George Hill, who's been on the Sacramento Kings, who has not played a lick of important basketball all season long. He hasn't been trying. He signed that deal to get paid millions of dollars. Good for you, George Hill. Rodney Hood's been hurt all season. They just got him. He looked fresh as heck last night. Jordan Clarkson's been playing for the Lakers. He missed some games this year. And Larry Nance is a good bench player. So they're all fresh, going against a bunch of Celtics players who are completely, totally tired and been going for London. I'm not a believer in the Cavs yet. They need to get better on defense still.
All right, so the Cavs are at number 7 as we move along here quickly to the Minnesota Timberwolves at number 6.
Yeah, they need the All-Star break. They're also a very tired team. There are a lot of good teams this year that need the All-Star break just to get a general rest. They look good. I know Jimmy Butler got, embarrassed by LeBron James in that game with the game winner, but it's okay. Rolling along. Nothing's really changed for the T-Wolves the past couple weeks.
So there are the T-Wolves at number 6. Number 5, we go San Antonio Spurs here.
Small rant about the Spurs.
Yep.
It is unfreaking believable what they are doing without Kawhi Leonard. This is the 5th best team in the NBA, and they're doing it without the 3rd best player in the entire sport. It is unbelievable what they've been able to do without Kawhi Leonard. They've been missing Tony Parker for most of the season as well. So they're doing this with their backup small forward, their backup point guard, a really old Pau Gasol, and a LaMarcus Aldridge who's having a good season. But I don't know how they're this good. It's Greg Popovich. This is
amazing, huh?
This is his finest performance of his coaching career so far. I have no clue how they're so good. It's incredible.
The Spurs at number 5. They are behind this team, the Boston Celtics. Yeah. Are you dropping them at all after that loss?
I am dropping them. I had them at 2. They're now at 4. Look, it's just they need the All-Star break. And this is about the time of year where I predicted this early in the season that I knew that they were going to be good for most of the year just because Brad Stevens is the coach of the year, whatever. But this is where they're starting to miss Gordon Hayward, where they go up against these teams. They can stop them on defense every so often, but they just don't quite have that offensive push that you need to be, need to beat the Cavs when you're down 10 points or need to beat the Warriors when you're down 6 points on the road. They just don't have that offensive push from anyone else that isn't Kyrie Irving, and boy, do they need the All-Star break. They went to London and had this crazy game stretch of about a week where they played 5 games in a week. This team is exhausted. All-Star break is desperately needed. They'll be fine after it.
All right, so they're at number 4. Tough loss yesterday against the Cavaliers. Let's go to number 3, the Toronto Raptors.
Holy cow, the Toronto Raptors. I don't mean to make some sort of dinosaur joke here, but they are eating people alive. This is crazy. They have been on fire. They're currently the top team in the East. I know the Celtics kind of been the top half of the East punching bags recently. They roasted the Celtics by 20 at home. They've been destroying teams recently. It's awesome to see. But again, Cam, it doesn't matter what they do in the regular season because they choke in the postseason every single year. So I don't really care what they do until they can win a postseason series. Don't care.
All right, so we have to wait.
We have to wait. I don't care.
Okay, so the Raptors are at number 3. Number 2, the Houston Rockets. Wow.
Look, I'll put it this way. When Chris Paul and James Harden have been playing in the same game, they've only lost 2 games this year. 2. Now, credit, they've only played about like 29 games together, but that means that they're 27-2 when they have Chris Paul and James Harden on the court.
That's crazy.
It's wild. When they have those 2 on the court, they might actually be the best team in the NBA. I know the Warriors are the crazy, this and that, but it is just unbelievable what Mike D'Antoni has been able to do with these 2 guys. This is a incredibly fascinating experiment that so far has worked out as good as you possibly could have hoped. Clint Capella has been great at the center spot. He had, I believe, like 25 and 20 in 28 minutes a couple nights ago. They're playing great defense. The bench is working out really well. There were rumors they might trade Ryan Anderson. They held off on that. So this Rockets team, I think what they've showed this regular season, they do have a chance to beat the Golden State Warriors. And to be totally honest, I'm not saying they're going to. I think it's a better chance than people give them credit for. I think if they go into a game with the Warriors right now, it's going 7.
And there they are at number 1, Harris, the Golden State Warriors. And you have them totally running out of energy.
They have completely 100%. They are out of energy. Totally out of energy. They're dead. They are dead. They are dead. They need to find a way to reignite this offense and the defense as well. They're getting ejected. They lead the NBA in technical fouls. They need the All-Star break. I'll put it this way. When you play as much consecutive basketball as they have for the past couple years, they're tired at this point. They've played so many consecutive finals, postseasons, this and that.
Right.
The only person that can keep up with it is LeBron James, and he even had a midseason lull. So they need a little break.
What's your NBA Finals prediction, ladies and gentlemen? Let us know in the comment section there. Harris Rubenstein, glad to have you back on, buddy.
Thanks, man.
We'll have another fresh set of NBA Power Rankings next week, and you'll be watching the games, of course, and analyzing everything.
I will. Hopefully, when the All-Star break comes, we have a really fun 3-point contest and dunk contest. Look out for the All-Star weekend. We're having fun one. And also, the first ever hip-hop All-Star game featuring all the rappers who wish they were ballers now that all the ballers are turning into rappers.
That's perfect, because it's in L.A., too.
Exactly.
So there you go. Harris Rubenstein joining the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. So we're talking a little NBA right now. What's your NBA Finals prediction? Let me know. Hit me up in the comments section. Hit me up on Twitter as well, at Mr. Rogers99. We're going to stick with the basketball theme here. We got Bryant Ralph, college basketball insider, coming on the Cam Rogers Show. We're going to hit a quick break. We're going to talk to him about the top 16 teams that were released yesterday. Stick around. It's the Cam Rogers Show. And welcome back to the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. We have our NCAA basketball insider, Bryant Ralph, joining the program right now. Brian was a busy man yesterday as, of course, the NCAA released their top 16 seeds for March Madness, which is really bringing a lot of excitement early to March Madness, which is pretty cool. Brian, how we doing? Doing fantastic. Hey, let's get right into it, my man. Let's take a look at the East region here. 1 through 4 we go. We got Villanova at 1, Duke at 2, Texas Tech at 3, and then Ohio State at 4. Villanova is an interesting one. First of all, how about Big East basketball as we stand right now?
It's incredibly strong, especially at the top. You have Villanova, who's a 1 seed. Xavier also got a 1 seed in this top 16 early release. They're not quite as deep as a lot of other conferences. Villanova and Xavier are the only 2 teams that are ranked and figure to be ranked when the AP poll comes out later today. But they should still get 6 or 7 teams into the NCAA tournament, and for a league with 10 teams, that's incredible.
You got Duke right behind them, Brian, and of course the caveat with them is the defense. But as a number 2 seed, I mean, with 5 losses total, I mean, that's pretty good.
Well, I think the fact that they got a 2 seed struck a lot of people by surprise because of those recent struggles. They've lost 3 of their last 5 games. They haven't been playing particularly well, especially defensively. But we saw the committee give them credit for their overall resume, which included a lot of big early season wins that really helped bolster that overall resume and got them a 2 seed over some 3 seeds that are playing better but don't have the number of quality wins.
Right, yeah, and there you have Texas Tech at 3, Ohio State at 4. Brian, a general philosophical question here about these rankings. It seems like the committee is favoring these quality wins, whether it's in conference or out of conference, more so than, just these losses here and there.
Yeah, it's more about who you can beat and who you've proven you can beat than the occasional off night you may have had around Christmas time, around exams, when you were on the road and you were another team's best game. I think when you play 30-some-odd games, as teams do around the country, the committee has more of a focus on who you can beat as opposed to, being more consistent or who you may have lost to once or twice.
Let's take a look at the South region here, Brian. There's UVA, the number 1 overall seed. Then you got Cincinnati, Michigan State, and then Tennessee at 4. Big point of contention for many people in the college basketball circles. Brian, I'm sure you've heard it. Michigan State at 3. Yeah,
now this was something that is going to be interesting because there's a very good case to be made for Michigan State being the number 1 team in the country when the AP poll comes out later today. Villanova and Virginia and Purdue had established themselves as the top 3 teams in the country, with Michigan State as a 4th, and those top 3 teams all lost, Purdue losing to Michigan State on Saturday. So naturally you'd think Michigan State would move up, but their overall resume just isn't there. They've only played 5 games against the top 50 RPI teams. They've only won 2 of those games, one of which was against Purdue. And so going back to the committee rewarding teams for good wins, Michigan State simply doesn't have enough to warrant a spot on the top 2 lines.
And not only are they a 3 seed, they're also number 11 overall. So if you want to kind of put it in an AP poll kind of sense, like if the AP poll would put them at number 11 overall, which just won't happen today. So it's kind of interesting to see that difference there. Tennessee at number 4, 6 losses on the campaign for them. What do you make of the Vols there?
They're one of these teams that's a prime example of the sum of the parts being greater than any one particular player. They were picked to finish among the worst teams in the SEC this year. Rick Barnes has them playing incredibly well. I thought they had a great chance to be a 3 seed on this release, and then Saturday they went down to Alabama and lost by 28 points. And so this is a team that can beat some good teams. They went on the road and won at Kentucky earlier in the week, but that Alabama loss kind of showed the talent disparity they have between themselves and some of the other top teams.
And there you see the Cavs there at the top of the board in the South region, 7-1 in true road games, Brian. Let me ask you this. How much will road wins matter as we go forward here in the seedings?
They're not going to matter a lot, but they will matter. Because if we saw last year, Syracuse got left out of the tournament on the bubble because they didn't have any real road wins over a team that was in the tournament. They want to show, the committee's looking for teams that prove they can win away from home because they view that as a better indicator of the overall strength of your team as opposed to winning when everything's set up for you to win with the crowd behind you in favorable conditions that you're comfortable with. So they'll play somewhat of a factor, but I don't think it's going to be the overwhelming factor. I think that will be the number of quality wins no matter where you got them.
Let's take a look at the Midwest region here. There's Xavier at number 1, Auburn at 2, Clemson at 3, Oklahoma at 4. Let's start with the Sooners here, and they snuck in at number 16 overall. Owning 6 wins over Group 1 opponents, more than 10 teams, Brian, in the top 16, but they do have 8 losses.
And 6 of those losses come in the last 8 games. So this was kind of a surprise for a lot of people, the fact that they snuck in. But again, those number of quality wins, we're seeing the committee place a major emphasis on those. And really, after the top 15, there's a number of teams who are fighting for that 16th and Final Four spot, Oklahoma being one of them. West Virginia is another one of those teams, but they keep losing. Gonzaga doesn't have a high enough RPI to really warrant a ranking. Rhode Island doesn't have the number of quality wins to warrant that ranking. So you're essentially picking the lesser of evils here with who's deserving of this 4th spot. And with the number of big wins Oklahoma has, that's why they got the nod right now.
You know, Brian, I'm calling this Midwest region the fun region. I mean, this is just fun seeing these teams here. Xavier, Auburn, Clemson, Oklahoma. Like, did we project this in the offseason?
Xavier would be ecstatic if this is the draw they got, because Auburn and Clemson are 2 more of those teams like Tennessee who some of their parts are greater than any one individual player. Xavier's a great team, but they have one of the best players in the country in Trayvon Blewett, who could take over a string like this. Oklahoma, we know what they can do. We know Trae Young's incredible and going to win National Player of the Year, but they also stink on defense. And so if this somehow plays out, this would set up perfectly for some really fun games, but I think it would be the perfect step for Xavier to make the Final Four.
All right, finally here we have the West region. There is Purdue at number 1, Kansas at 2, UNC at number 3, Arizona at number 4. I think Purdue is going to be in the Final Four, Brian. This team is fantastic.
They certainly have a great chance to. They're experienced. They're very deep. One thing that I think we saw some concern with, at least for me, this week in their close losses to Ohio State and Michigan State, is when they get in these close games against good teams, which they haven't been in many close games. They haven't played many good teams because the Big Ten is just not as strong this year. They had to go inside Isaac Haas, who's finally figured out he's bigger and stronger than everybody else and needs to learn and figured out how to use that to his advantage over the past month. But teams that make runs in tournaments and make big plays late in games usually rely on their guards to do so, who are more consistent than necessarily a big man making a post move. So that hurt them down the stretch in both of those games, and I think is something to watch moving forward in the Big Ten tournament and then early on in the NCAA tournament if they get in any of these close games and how they handle those and navigate those.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Whenever you see those teams making big-time runs in the March Madness and, of course, conference tournaments as well, it's those guards that really light it up. So Purdue, Kansas, UNC, Arizona, wrapping things up in the West region there, Brian. Of course, really exciting to have you on to talk about it. We'll, of course, do it again soon. Gotta ask you this before I let you go. My Terps, I was there in College Park over the weekend. We beat Northwestern. Any shot for us to get in? Or, I mean, we're going to have to win the Big Ten tournament probably, right?
You're going to have to win the Big Ten tournament. There's simply the injuries killed Maryland this year early on, and the Big Ten not being good also hurt them. There's no opportunities for them to pick up big wins. Northwestern before the season would have been a big win. Minnesota wins would have been big wins, but those teams really struggled this year and now aren't top 50. They're barely top 100 RPI wins. So Maryland, I think, is either going to have to win the Big Ten tournament or somehow make the finals and beat 2 of the Ohio States, Purdue's, Michigan State's on their way there to earn an NCAA tournament bid.
And when everybody in College Park is bragging about beating Butler earlier this season, that is a concern if you're a Maryland fan. There's no doubt about it. Brian Ralph, our college basketball insider on the program. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
All right, many thanks to Brian for coming on the show. And to wrap up the program, a final word talking about Reuben Foster. And he is back in the negative headlines. We got a little player card for you guys out there, and it ain't a good one. So he was arrested recently on charges of domestic violence, and there you see it right there. He was released on bail last night. Arrested also on January 12th for marijuana possession, which is just, it's marijuana possession. I mean, some states it's actually legal, for crying out loud, but this obviously much more serious. There have been reports that Reuben Foster had possession of an assault rifle or some sort of gun or whatever. So obviously not a good look for Foster. John Lynch saying a few weeks ago, look, we have confidence that we can kind of turn this guy around in terms of his character and things like that. And Foster, of course, had his fair share of question marks in the NFL draft and all this stuff. And here we go again. And it's yet another domestic violence case that could drag out like an Ezekiel Elliott saga. I really hope it doesn't. I hope the NFL is decisive in their punishment and we can quickly move on from it. But obviously a really black eye in what is really an exciting time for the San Francisco 49ers, who just got their franchise quarterback signed, one Jimmy Garoppolo. Reuben Foster was a great linebacker last year, and now perhaps could be looking at a 6-game suspension if the NFL is going to go along with its typical kind of program of automatic 6-game suspensions for domestic violence cases. But we have seen the NFL botch this stuff before, so we shall see. But Reuben Foster arrested and released on bail last night on domestic violence charges. We're wrapping up the Cam Rogers Show here, folks. Sponsored by the Game Time app. Check them out, chatsports.com/tickets. Download it today, folks, and get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. I am saying see you later here from Dallas, Texas. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. I'll be back live at 10 o'clock Eastern Time on Wednesday. Peace out.